Hi, it's me checking in with you and hoping that you are okay. I had a rough day yesterday. It got better at the hangout last night because I was so happy to see everybody and always fills my cup. So thanks to everybody who joined us. I hope you're doing okay. I'm happy to have you here. And I think you're going to really like my conversation with Sam Youngman, who's always great. Let's do it. Stand up. And we are off. It's the Friday show, and I had to hang out last night, as I said. Didn't get to do the news or clips here. I'm way behind, and sorry, I've been slacking a bit on that. I know how much people love it, but I do want to get this out. I've got a whole bunch to do today before I head down to Maryland, where I'm going to be speaking again to the Maryland Teachers Union. Very excited for that. Thanks to longtime listener Sean McKillop, who was actually at our hangout last night for a little while, invited me back down there. Very much looking forward to it. So got to get this show on the road. And I am very excited that Sam Youngman was able to join me. He's one of my favorite people to talk to. If I could, I would co-host a daily show with this guy. He's a veteran campaign political reporter, former White House correspondent, covered presidential campaigns in 2004, 2008, and 2012, countless U.S. House and Senate races, as well as the administrations George W. Bush and Barack Obama while working for The Hill and Reuters and other news organizations. He's a native of Kentucky, and he is a real funny, smart, thoughtful guy who I like very much. So let's get right to it with today's conversation. Today's guest with Sam Youngman, who is most importantly now the co-writer and creator of Today's Big Stuff, a very popular daily newsletter, which you should go subscribe to right now because it's so good. Here we go. Sam Youngman always comes through for me. I'm so happy to see you. We both are just talking before I hit record. It's tough out there. We're losing our minds. What's the emotion? Anger, fear, anxiety? What are you dealing with? All of them?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's like rage, but with flurries of panic. It's and settling over everything is just disbelief. Disbelief that this country has such little self-respect that there are people cheering the South African rooting around in your Social Security, that there are people cheering the South African who's calling our astronauts, quote unquote, retarded, that there are people cheering when Donald Trump tells us what a corrupt country we have and then turns around and kisses the extremely corrupt ass of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got to tell you, man, of all the things I thought I understood about this country that I don't, it's that complete absence of self-respect. I thought we were a prideful people, and I was mistaken.
Well said. Very well said. We're seeing splintering. We're seeing some splintering. I saw one of the biggest Trump supporters, most influential hate radio talkers, Mark Levin, came out today against what Trump is doing and saying vis-a-vis Russia, Ukraine. And there's a lot of Republicans that are uncomfortable with this. Whether you believe he is a Russian agent or that Putin has something on him or not doesn't matter to me. What do you make? Let's just unpack the latest on this, because this is really hard to watch emotionally, because you think about how many people have fought and died. But more importantly, the history of the conflict and the history of America versus Russia. Like, what are your thoughts on this and some of the splintering that we're seeing? Some Republicans not wanting to go along.
Well, I guess my question is, why isn't more? Why isn't the party of Reagan furious that their guy is surrendering to Putin? You know, Pete, I know a lot of this is generational. Like, I'll be 48 years old in April. I grew up in Owensboro, Kentucky in a military family. And when my little brother and I went into the backyard to play guns, they were imaginary invading Russians we were fighting against. We watched movies like Red Dawn. We watched movies like Rocky IV. And then in the years since, we've watched Putin down civilian airliners. We've watched Putin, illegally invade, rape, pillage, kill in Ukraine. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out, what did the Republican Party decide they liked about Putin other than his affinity for Trump?
Killing people who stood up and spoke out against him is probably one of the things they like. I don't think that there's a certain percentage of Trump supporters that wouldn't be too upset if that were the case. If Kash Patel, who's just been sworn in as FBI director, arrests, I don't know, Rachel Maddow.
No, I think that's right.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's told people what their rights are. That's a crime, apparently.
Yeah, well, and now you've got, this bullshit U.S. attorney sending letters to Congressman Robert Garcia, basically, some chicken shit ham-handed almost threat where he suggests he's investigating members of Congress who, by the way, who are not only protected by the First Amendment, but also the speech and debate clause, right? So the idea that these people who a year ago were free speech warriors are now, the ones who are threatening jail time. Oh, it makes my damn head want to explode.
Yeah, it makes everybody's head. We're having a really hard time. Like there's a collective emotional angst around this for more than half of Americans who are paying attention, at least. Some people aren't paying attention, and some people obviously support it in this country. But like this, I think you said before I hit record, this isn't sustainable. Like
I don't think so. I mean, at least not for me personally. I mean, I was joking. They tell you you're angry, you should count to 10. I'm up to like 11 billion. I mean, it's, I don't know how we keep this pace going for the next 4 years. And I'll tell you just the chatter I see among everyday Americans who are scared and angry about what they're seeing. I've never seen it like this before. It's frenzied. There's a lot of rhetoric that is, going to places I never would have guessed before, which, by the way, this is a good time to say, you're not going to be anybody doing, involved in this stuff or watching this stuff who's angrier about it than me. We got to be smart. That means no threats, not on social media, not in emails. Don't do what the January 6th idiots did, because I'll tell you, this DOJ is just looking for an excuse to put people who don't like Trump in jail. So we got to resist, but damn, we got to be smart about it.
Let me play devil's advocate because I really want to know what you think about this, because the optimist part of me wants
Doesn't the devil have enough advocates these days?
Speaking of Kash Patel, who's just sworn in as the devil's advocate today. Let's say that there are too many people working in this agency or that, and we could stand to lose a small percentage of them. I feel like they said they're going to cut 10% of the federal government staff or something like that. The new Secretary of Transportation, Brian Duffy, who I think was on the Real World. I think that's how he made his bones.
Sean Duffy. Yeah.
What is it? Yeah. Sean Duffy. He said, what is everybody crying about? 500 people in the FAA were let go. There's 44,000. Take that across every agency. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe we can make it through this. Maybe we won't have, too many planes crashing. Maybe, too many people won't starve with the, ending of USAID. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems.
Well, I don't know. If you want to cut 400 people from the FAA, that's fine. Just make sure none of them are the ones watching my planes. I guess what I would say is this. If you want to go looking for waste, fraud, and abuse, there are ways to do that. You could follow the model of the Clinton-Gore administration, where they basically went through with a task force, and then Congress, fulfilling their constitutional role, went through and sort of defunded those positions that were deemed unnecessary. What we're seeing now are arbitrary firings by a drug-addled lunatic who's not only a shitty American, but a shitty father, and somebody who's in constant touch with, again, all roads lead to Vladimir Putin. I don't believe for 1 second this is about waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't have coincidentally started with the departments that were investigating Elon Musk. Also, I don't know about you, but my entire time in politics, the first Friday of every month, we look at the jobs report to see how many jobs have been created under the President of the United States. This guy's going the other way. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs lost. We're talking about Americans being fired. You mentioned veterans. We're seeing veterans who served this country in 2 wars who are being treated like absolute shit by somebody who's been an American for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, well said. I wrote this. I basically copy and pasted some of it from Pete Buttigieg. But the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is one of America's the American people's best defense against waste, fraud, and abuse. Demolishing it will, of course, lead to more waste, fraud, and abuse. Trump and Elon have demolished the agency that protects you from criminal scams. If you want to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, you would empower the inspectors general. If you wanted more waste, fraud, and abuse, you would fire them. Trump and Elon are, of course, firing them.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was a response to the global economic collapse of 2008. Yeah. This is my biggest issue with people like Elon and Trump and their fans who only started paying attention to politics in America in 2016, is there was shit going on before then. And a lot of the stuff that they're dismantling now was built to try and stop bad things from happening. You know, like the whole post-World War II order that they're now upsetting on a whim. You know, we built that with blood, with treasure. It was not easy to come by. The relative peace that we've enjoyed for decades was not easy to build. And watching these idiots just tear it up like they're the first ones to ever think of it, it is exasperating.
I ask you specifically about Canada. Tonight there's the U.S.-Canada hockey game, and I'm rooting for Canada. Just like I was against the U.S. invasion of Iraq, I am against the U.S. invasion of or annexing of Canada and Ukraine. Specifically in Canada, they were pretty divided politically. I've been talking to a lot of Canadians, but you don't have to talk to them. You can hear from them on both sides. They are unified in a way they never have been in most people's lifetime against us. And yes, this is dumb and insane and offensive, but Caroline Leavitt, the president's spokeswoman today, referred to Canada as the soon to be 51st state. I think the consequences of repercussions of that are hard to kind of fathom and understand. But talk to any Canadian, just like any American would feel if it were any other country talking about us that way. What are your thoughts on the 51st state rhetoric and the, not to mention the tariffs and policies?
Yeah, I mean, I'm flat out disgusted by it. It makes me ashamed to be an American. Right. I mean, we're basically talking about Canada the way that Saddam talked about Kuwait. My girlfriend's Canadian. You wouldn't know her. She goes to a different school. She's totally real. But, you know, the funny thing is I'm like you. I've been a Team USA hockey fan since the Kachuk's dad was playing when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
And I'll be rooting for Canada, too, mostly because I am ashamed of the shit my country is doing to those good people. I'll tell you, I watched this Netflix series that just came out this week. It's called Court of Gold, and it's an in-depth behind-the-scenes look at the 2024 Olympic basketball tournament, you know, that our new dream team won. And it's incredible. It's incredible remembering how unified we felt, how patriotic we felt, how much we cheered these guys on, and the elation we felt when they won. I don't know that I would feel that right now because I am not feeling pride for the Stars and Stripes. I'm feeling embarrassed, and I'm feeling damn confused about who we actually are as a country.
What do you make of what's happening right now with Democrats in Congress? What do you like? What do you not like? Is there anything that, and specifically, who do you like and who do you not like? Is there anybody that you think is doing a good job using the right tactics, techniques? There's not, I feel like it's not wrong to say there's not that much that they can do, but you may disagree.
No, I'll tell you, I just saw Senator Jackie Rosen from Nevada doing an interview where she was saying that, you know, the people wanting more from them just don't appreciate that they're in a minority. Senator Rosen has voted for quite a few of Donald Trump's cabinet secretaries. So it turns out there actually are things she could be doing in the minority she's just choosing not to do. And blaming her own party, to me, is just despicable. AOC is proving every single day that you can get cameras to pay attention to what you're doing if you push back. Jasmine Crockett is showing our leaders how to talk like a normal human being. You know, she's not quoting Ben Franklin. She's not giving us, you know, stuff that was cut from a West Wing script. She's just talking like a normal person. I am enormously disappointed with what I've seen from National Democrats. I am reminded of the early days in 2017 when we saw sort of a similar posture. We saw, well, let's work with him where we can. And it created a vacuum of leadership that a guy named Michael Avenatti filled. We were so desperate for somebody to punch back that we latched on to this cheap 2-bit con artist because he was the only game in town. I'm reminded of that line. I just trashed Sorkin, but I'm reminded of the line from the American President where Michael J. Fox's character says, you know, they're so desperate for leadership that they'll crawl through the desert. When they don't find water, they'll drink the sand. That's what we did with Avenatti, was we drank the sand. And I'm terrified that not only are we creating those conditions again, but that they're going to create a situation where we have a Tea Party on the left. I don't know if you saw this new Quinnipiac poll that came out yesterday. Looked at a lot of different groups. Elon Musk, for example, is underwater, 38% favorable, 50% unfavorable. You know who one of the lowest was? Congressional Democrats, 21% approval, 68% disapproval. That means our own party hates them. They're not that we don't want to be told, hey, we're doing all we can when we know that's not true. Look, we know that they can't move legislation. We know there's only so much we can do, but they can stop voting for nominees, right? I mean, that seems like just kind of a basic first step to me. Study McConnell. Mitch McConnell announced today he's not running again. I covered Mitch McConnell in 2014.
That's right.
I followed him closely. I watched the way he worked. And I'll tell you something Mitch McConnell likes to say. There are people who want to make a point, and there are people who want to make a difference. Right now, we're not in a position to make a difference, but we can sure as hell make a point, and we should be every damn day. McConnell did a complete blockade on Obama. It's wild to me that Senate Democrats aren't doing the same.
Yeah, all good points, and I hope that changes. I mean, there's a lot more that certainly can be done. I mean, what did you make of the Democratic governor of my state, my governor, Kathy Hochul? What should she have done about Eric Adams and that whole horrific scandal that all of New Yorkers should be embarrassed by both of these folks, I think. But what do you think of that? Should she have fired him?
I mean, my instinct is yes. And I say that knowing that there are, intricacies to this decision that move beyond my sort of shoot from the hip, let's go to war attitude. That being said, I think one of the reasons a lot of us are quick to sort of assume Hochul is looking for the path of least resistance or the cowardly path is because she hasn't really earned the benefit of the doubt with us. This is a person who tried to put an anti-choice judge on the state superior court. And, that was not a great foot to get off on with us. And so, when she sort of, I don't know, half in, half out on this Eric Adams stuff, none of us really trust where she's coming from. Personally, I'm ready to start acting more like Republicans. Fire him and deal with the consequences later. And, let's stop trying to be so smart. Let's stop playing four-dimensional chess when we're playing against a chicken who's playing checkers. It doesn't make any sense. We keep trying to be too smart for this stuff.
What are your thoughts on our great Vice President, J.D. Vance, going over to Germany and lecturing them and meeting with the far-right white extremist party, AfD?
I think if he had actually had sex with a couch right there on the stage, it would have been less embarrassing than his pathetic surrender. My favorite thing about J.D. is he's lecturing us on masculinity all the time, while also being maybe one of the biggest kiss asses in world history.
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy who's too gutless to stand up for his own family, his own wife, his own kids. I'm not taking lectures on masculinity. There's this great clip from JD's Senate race when Trump went to endorse him, and Trump's speaking, and JD's sitting on stage right next to him, and Trump says, JD can't quit kissing my ass. And JD just laughs, just takes it like the punk that he is. And you realize that the reason he's probably having sex with couches is because who the hell else would sleep with that guy? Yeah.
He is dangerous, though. I've been reading up on all the ideology of the tech billionaires, the Peter Thiels, Mark Andreessen, and, of course, Elon Musk. Peter Thiel, of course, created JD apparently in a lab.
Yes,
with some mascara and hair gel and a fake beard, and he funded his whole Senate campaign. There would be no J.D. Vance without Peter Thiel. But man, these guys believe crazy things about how society should be, how government should be set up, what it should be, and religion, and so much more. And they have billions of dollars and tremendous amount of influence. And there really aren't that many of them. There certainly aren't that many people that believe in this techno state stuff. Most of us don't even understand it. I'm just beginning to understand it. But that whole movement and the theories behind it have gained a tremendous amount of ground. And I see him as extremely dangerous with the support of Elon Musk and everyone else.
Yeah, I agree. I've always seen JD as kind of a figurehead for that terrifying Silicon Valley technocrat, movement. You're right. Peter Thiel is a terrifying individual. I always found it so funny that QAnon shit, went off on Democrats, taking the blood of children to be younger. That was something Peter Thiel used to talk about, getting teenager blood to stay young forever. I mean, that's the kind of crazy shit those people come up with. Look, the reality is they got too much money. They're way too powerful to be the weirdo freaks that they are. I think about what kind of ties do they have to this country? There's never been a member of the Musk family who's worn the uniform of this country. He doesn't know what that kind of sacrifice is like. Anytime if he talks about supporting the troops, it's just a line to him. He doesn't know what it actually means. And I think that's true of the whole valley. They are, I don't know if you've ever spent any time there, but to me, anytime I've ever spent any time in Silicon Valley, I just came away, sort of struck by how aggressively weird everybody is. Like, there's a sense of entitlement there that puts Wall Street to shame, if you can imagine that. I think they're dangerous people, and I worry that the horse is out of the barn. We let them become billionaires, and they see us as NPCs. We're not main characters. We're just these background characters in their story. And if you ask me, that is a pretty goddamn dangerous philosophy to have.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I mean, they don't, it's very well said. That's how they see us, that they don't have any empathy towards the suffering, any kind of suffering, really. Certainly not a collective suffering, whether it be job loss or death and destruction in a place like Ukraine. That's a really good point. It's a kind of a hallmark of their attitude, of their standard operating procedure. I think it's fair to say. Where are you getting hope, if anywhere? I mean, it feels like people are getting out in the streets. There's all kinds of different grassroots organizations and there's protests and there's pressure. But I feel like a lot of people are thinking about the midterm elections or the next even presidential election. And I'm just thinking about tomorrow. Like, how do we get through today or tomorrow without losing our health care or our job or our FDIC insured savings? And there is real fear. It's palpable. And I feel like people are doing whatever they can to feel purposeful. I know I am, but where are you seeing any, if any, inspiration or hope?
Yeah. I mean, the thing I worry about losing most is my mind. I mean, it's amazing how often I just wonder if I'm just completely losing it. Where am I finding hope? I'm finding hope in my fellow resistors. I'll tell you, our newsletter has seen more growth in the last month than we've seen in the last 6 years.
Great.
I'm sure you saw the Midas Touch guys just eclipsed Joe Rogan as the #1 podcast.
Yep.
Chris Cluey, former NFL punter, was arrested at a city council meeting in Huntington Beach for, practicing civil disobedience, calling Trump and Elon Nazis. I'm gathering hope from recognizing that Americans are not going to take this shit lying down. That if Elon and Trump want to take us out, if they want to change us into something else, then they've got a fight on their hands. That's where the hope is coming from. And, look, it's a long road, and I think we've got more losses before we start winning again. But yeah, I'm looking at the people who are fighting back next to me, and I'm getting my hope from them.
I heard that apparently Trump, I like that, by the way. I like what you said. It makes me feel good, and I'll adopt it. But Trump wants a new Air Force Ones again, and he's urging that they rush the plane. And in your newsletter, it says, let's see, where is it? That you finally found something we agree with Trump on. Rush the Air Force One plane out. And I was surprised that you agreed with him. But then it says, we don't even care if the motherfucker has wings. So you don't care if the new Air Force One plane has wings, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, rush it out. I don't care if it's got wings, an engine, whatever. Just get it out there. Get him on it and let's take off.
I heard that the people that were on that plane that turned over upon landing in Toronto, they each got $30,000. Am I wrong to wish I was on that plane?
Well, I think you're lowballing yourself there, Steve. I think you're worth more than $30,000, pal. I think they are too. I think, look, if you leave me hanging upside down with only a damn Delta seatbelt keeping me from breaking my neck, I'm gonna want a lot more than $30,000.
Do you think if while they were hanging upside down, somebody told them we're all going to be all right and we're going to get $30,000, they would have clapped like they landed safely? Let me ask you about the situation in the White House briefing room, which you spent some good time in, right? There's an interesting debate going on about what solidarity, if any, there should be with all the different news outlets supporting the Associated Press, who's been banned, I guess, from the briefing room, from the Oval Office or whatever it is, because they won't adopt the language of the Gulf of America. And, I don't think that's an easy call. I think it's a tough call. I think if you cede the ground, you're just going to be left with QAnon reporters who are now in that room like crazy podcast, YouTube people, Breitbart people that are in there with access. But still, this cannot go on. I mean, talk about censorship and cancel culture and anti-First Amendment incriminations and threats. What do you think about that whole story? And it's not going to end there, right? If you don't comply with the language or with behavior, they're going to continue to restrict access. Even Fox News is in solidarity with the Associated Press, apparently.
Yeah, well, at least they're signing the letters. They're striking a different tone on air, I believe. I have to say, first of all, I am really impressed and honestly somewhat surprised that the AP has been holding its ground. I think they know, like a lot of us do, that if they give in here, it's all over. It's the White House deciding which words you're allowed to use and which words you're not. And it may seem like a trivial battle over some stupid fucking renaming of the Gulf, but it is kind of the whole ball of wax. And if the White House is deciding which words independent press agencies can use, then it's over. We're state media at that point. You're right. We've got the QAnon folks, As for the solidarity, look, the White House Correspondents Association is a very weak organization. It always has been. It doesn't have the authority or power that most people give it. And I agree with you. I don't know. I love the idea of all correspondents standing together in solidarity and refusing to cover anything. But I also think that's exactly what a dictator wants. Right. I think, he wants the enemy. I think the AP's got to stand its ground. And I don't know how the other news organizations are a good ally to them. I was there when the Obama White House was critical of Fox News. And Jake Tapper leading the way, we all basically rallied around Fox News because we felt like it was an attack on the First Amendment. The biggest difference is the Obama White House was susceptible to shame. If they were doing something wrong and shitty and they got called out, they would course correct. This White House wallows in it. They love to be doing shitty things. So you can't shame them into doing the right thing. You just have to hold your ground. And let's hope, like hell, the AP continues to hold their ground.
Yeah, shame is not a province of the MAGA movement at all the way down, to anybody who supports it. They don't feel that kind of shame around most things. The majority of them. Lastly, today, Kash Patel was confirmed as FBI director, which is crazy to say. And Pam Bondi is going to be the attorney general. They're both election deniers. She's the attorney general. He's her top cop. What are your specific concerns about him based on who he is, his record? Obviously, his lack of qualifications, his sycophancy, is that a word? Of Donald Trump. Just absolutely loves the guy. Wrote a children's book about him, all kinds of stuff. What are your concerns about that? I don't think he can. I don't know. Something tells me that FBI rank and file don't like this guy. They're not going to like this guy. They're not going to want to report him. Same thing about, at defense with Pete Hegseth.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's where I'm pinning my hopes. But I think the reality is we're going to watch the FBI become something more akin to the KGB, whereas the FBI recently, I mean, you don't have to go back very far in American history to see a time when the FBI was actually, targeting Americans. Look at the Fred Hampton story in Chicago where he was just straight up fucking murdered by the FBI. John Mulaney did this great bit a few years ago where he was talking about he was so glad Trump lost because he didn't want to have to defend the FBI anymore. And I feel that so much. Like, that is the last organization in the world. I mean, the last 9 directors of the FBI have been Republicans. So the idea that this was some bastion of liberalism is a complete joke. Of all the picks, I think Kash and RFK probably scare me the most. The FBI has immense power to destroy lives. And when we know it's doing it from a place of conspiracy theories, QAnon crap, and, Donald Trump's revenge wish list, it's hard to hold out any hope that it'll be okay. Yeah,
I think you're right about that. Well, listen, I will be watching the hockey game with you tonight, and I'll be continuing to talk with you as much as possible and reading your daily newsletter, which always makes me laugh and always gives me some hope. You guys are continuing to do great work, and I see every day, man, and I love you, and I appreciate you. You're doing very important stuff. Please keep it up.
Buddy, the feeling is mutual. Keep doing what you're doing. We need each other. We need to be reminded that we're not what we're feeling. We're not alone in it. And we need to be reminded that we've got each other.
Yeah.
That, it's not just happening to us individually. It's happening to all of us. So, and when we fight back, we're going to need the strength in numbers.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely right. Sam Youngman, my great thank you for joining me.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, there he goes, Sam Youngman. Go subscribe to Today's Big Stuff. Tell him I sent you. Support him on all the social medias. And that's it. That is a wrap on today, the week. Although I do have some great conversations coming. I'm sitting down with David Rothkopf and Barry Ritholtz. So look for those and look for the helpers. Look for the rays of sunlight. Look for the things that make you happy, like pie and love and friendship and whatever you love to do. Okay, that's all. I hope that you are hanging in there. I look forward to talking to you anytime on the Discord platform. Email me, standuppwithpete@gmail.com. Get your tickets to PODJAM in Las Vegas. And go buy John Carroll's new album, which should be out very soon at johncarroll.org. I'll be talking to him about it next week.
I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better